Growth Pod is brought to you by Genero, a leading growth agency in the Nordics. We interview marketing experts, business leaders, and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories and strategies behind profitable growth.
Jussi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joshua.
Pleasure to have you here. Going to cover a lot of topics, probably talk about your kind of past as well, but right now you're working as a general partner at Antler. So I'd love to start there. Could you kind of explain what is Antler? How did it come about? What are you guys doing? How is it different from what some of the other incubators / maybe early stage investors are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Antler a year and a half ago, I guess, to set up the office in Helsinki. And Antler is a global early stage VC investor. It was originally launched out of Singapore by a bunch of Norwegians and a Finn, another Jussi, my colleague, actually. And the whole vision from the get-go has been to be the kind of day zero first investor of a given company, somebody who basically backs founders from the very moment that a company is born, or even a bit before that. We want to be part of the company creation process. And since starting out of Singapore, we've now grown to actually 27 locations globally, Helsinki being one of them. I work for the Nordic Fund, and we are present in Helsinki, Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen. And what we do different versus a traditional VC, if we use that term, is that we run these founder residencies, we call them, where we bring in people who have a very strong desire and ambition to build something, create something, start the founder journey, but they don't necessarily have a team yet, or they might still be in the process of actually discovering what exact thing they want to build. And we're willing to kind of take the bet of bringing these people in, working with them, and then committing to be the first investor in whatever they end up doing together. So I would say that we go in this sense even earlier than a traditional early stage pre-seed VC would.
Okay.
And
so you come in earlier than Y Combinator even would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I guess when companies graduate, if we use that phrase, with us, when we make the investment decision, I think at that point they would be YC ready, so to say.
Yeah.
So we start the work already some months before that point.
Okay. And I think you just quite recently announced the latest fund in the Nordics, so congratulations on that.
Probably thanks.
It was good to go public with that and have it done.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that, of course. I mean, fundraising at this current environment, it's not the easiest thing to do. I mean, plenty of capital is still tied in all kinds of illiquid assets. I think the market is it's starting to move again. I mean, we're seeing more M&A activity. We're seeing more, hopefully, big IPOs this year. We're seeing more stuff happening, but fundraising is, the market is tighter than it used to be a couple of years back. So having now a 100 million fund, put together, of course, is great and allows us now to focus on what we actually like to do, which is investing and helping the great founders. I mean, I didn't become VC to fundraise. I became VC to help companies grow and get to invest in cool founders.
Exactly. I just, because you mentioned IPO, I just want to ask about that because I don't know the exact stats, but the IPO market in Finland has been like dead. So can you talk about maybe why it is and maybe specifically, like what's the implication of that on the startup community?
Yeah.
Is it like, yeah.
Well, the why is a good question. I guess we had a boom, and these things go in cycles. We had a boom, and now it's been slower. I mean, I guess the market is more cautious. They're more kind of risk aware at the moment than they were a couple of years back. And it always has to go so that I guess it's a US market that leads the way. It first starts opening in the US and then it kind of trickles down to the European markets and Finland being, well, we're at a remote corner of Europe, right? So most likely we'll be one of the kind of the later entrants to the IPO market when it kind of reopens. But the implication of all this, of things being slow, is that capital is not moving. So why we need IPOs and M&A is that money is being returned to investors so that they can invest again in something else, right? So if this flywheel does not turn, the money is not kind of freed from the past investments to be reallocated to something new, which of course makes it more difficult for any company to raise, for the funds, for the GPs to raise new funds, etc. And it just slows the whole economy down.
Yeah.
It's of course, I mean, this is the case when it comes to startups and like illiquid private market investments, but of course the same with the public side. When money doesn't move, economies slow down and things slow down.
Yes.
And
Is there like also a very big psychological effect? I'm thinking both for investors and founders, when you have like these big public M&A acquisitions, exits, IPOs, does that create like, both from like investors and entrepreneurs, they see that, it's actually possible. You can have this big exit. And
obviously, and we need those kind of crazy stories of somebody really making it big. Because I mean, those are the fuel of the founders of tomorrow, right? Hey, I want to be that person who takes my company public. You know, I want to be that star. And I don't even think people are in it for the money, but they're in it for the experience, for the status, for the fame, they want to be that person who stands, rings the bell at Nasdaq, if that's a thing to do. I don't know if it is, but I don't think it's about the money, but it's about the kind of winning, so to say. It's a game. It's about winning in that game.
I can understand that totally. Just go back to Antler. Your model then, you're like day zero investors. You're doing it at a very big scale. I think like 1,000 teams or companies founded.
Yeah. I mean,
or funded. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's way more than that globally nowadays.
Okay.
I mean, we have $1 billion like altogether AUM in the funds. So of course that already you can make quite a few bets with that. I think we've done something like 1,100 investments, like initial investments globally. In the Nordics, we're at 200 something now, and I mean that's what we do. We take a big number of early stage bets, and of course many of these end up failing. That's the whole logic of VC investing, and given that we go in earlier, even earlier than others, I mean our model is built in a way that it allows for many failures. But at the same time, of course, we need to find the winners. I think VC is all about, and investing in startups is all about the optimism. So what if things go super well? What happens in that scenario? And finding those people and those teams and those founders and those ideas to back. That's what kind of we should focus on, not the risks of all the things that can go wrong, because some things will go wrong, and it should, and that's totally fine. It's part of the game. For us, it's important to find the great stuff that actually goes well.
It's so interesting because if you think like very early stage, it's all about optimism, trying to see what could go right. And I feel like, private equity and maybe those types of investment, it's all about trying to figure out what could go wrong. And you're talking to like one guy who made the transition. It's like a huge mental shift you have to make.
No, and that's the case. But like funnily enough, even in listed markets, let's say like the OMX or the Helsinki Stock Exchange, even there, the return is actually, it comes from just a couple of lines. If you take a 10-year horizon, an average case in Helsinki is maybe flat or slightly negative. And the return is generated by a few winners. So even in more mature stages, you need to find the winners, and kind of that's what it's about. And the average return, of course, and kind of like the median startup will not generate a big return. It's most likely going to be actually zero, like a median return, right? So you need to find the winners and be optimist. That's what it's about.
I think in the US, it's been the case, right? I mean, the S&P 500 has had this like really great run, but if you exclude like the Magnificent Seven or whatever it is, it's actually negative. So they're like you got like a handful of companies carrying the world's biggest stock market, essentially.
And how sustainable is that? That's in the long run, I don't know.
It's crazy.
I don't know. But it's like, partially it might be hype, partially it might be this momentum, this everything AI now. But partially, it's about the position those companies have in the market. Those crazy strong network effects their business models have been able to generate and still do, the data advantage some of them have, and so forth. So it might be partially hype, but there's some truth to it as well, in my view. So it's not all fluff, all hot air. I don't think so.
So you, at Antler, you've done like 1,300, 1,400 investments. I guess that makes you one of the most active investors in the world. Are you able then to build like this really big data set of or are you? How are you taking like maybe an analytical approach, where this like VC maybe has been more kind of like judgment and kind of an art, or are you trying to like create the science of it?
Well, yes, we're trying to bring some science to it. Absolutely. I mean, we are super active, but of course we would want to, and we are also super selective. So it's not all about being active. I think on a global level, we receive at the moment something like 180,000 applications from all kinds of founders to join us building something. 180K, that's quite a big number, right?
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right? So of course the trick is, how do you pick the best founders out of that mass of that pool of candidates, right? So we would be super foolish if we didn't take a data approach to all this, right? So we have actually it's basically finding a needle from a haystack, right? So we have all kinds of ways of and we're building all kinds of tooling to allow us understand that pool of candidates better, be able to better pick the winning founders, the most prospective founders out of that pool, the prospective cases. So yeah, definitely it's a data play till some extent. But at the same time, I mean, investing this early, you back people. You ultimately you back founders, and you have to trust them. So there's definitely a lot of art to that as well. And that's kind of our approach. I mean, we bring in people to work with us for a number of months before we commit to actually investing capital in whatever they're building. So we tend to know the people really well when we kind of decide on whether we invest or not. And that's pretty fundamental in my view, at least, that I really want to trust the person. I really want to know the person that I'm investing in. And the idea is secondary to me. What they're building is secondary to me. It's the people that we back, and knowing the people well, trusting the people in their capabilities, in their determination, skill set, the ambition, vision, whatever that is. I mean, that's what we bet, and that's more art than science. And I think that you can only do by spending time with these people, kind of learning to know them, what they do for hobbies. I mean, how they talk, how they tell stories, how they behave, all this kind of stuff. So it's not just data, but it's also this kind of a perception of, like, do I fundamentally want to back this person or not? Do I believe in that person or not?
Yeah. Is there anything so obviously, like you said, it's finding the needle in the haystack. It's about identifying, presumably before like other investors, you are identifying like future top talent. Is there anything kind of counterintuitive that you've found as like a heuristic that you can look for, or is it kind of the basics, hardworking, dependable, very technically savvy, if that's what they're doing?
Yeah, I think that any startup to be able to disrupt and kind of stand out from the crowd or the competition, they need some unique angle to whatever they're doing. They need to figure out something unique, something that they do different versus everybody else. Because at any given point in time, there's going to be a huge number of companies or founders attempting to do thing X, solve thing X. So how do you kind of find your own angle to that? And sometimes the best founders are not the obvious ones. Sometimes you need somebody with a very specific skill set or a specific way of thinking, at least as part of the founding team, which allows for them to discover a unique angle to building something. So can we do this just by looking at CVs or kind of how they scored at an SAT or some test, IQ test or whatnot? I mean, I don't think you can, but you have to like find a team that has that unique angle, some way of getting there, some ambition that takes them there. And it can come in many shapes and forms, I think. So of course, we have some very strong leading indicators. If you've kind of done stuff in the past that you've been successful, I guess any VC would want to back an ex-founder who's done a great exit, right? So it's the most obvious thing. You have certain kind of career paths that might be indicative of hard work and a superior skill set, but it's not so black and white. We believe in diversity. We believe in teams that are diverse and like put together from a different set of talent, not just that everybody comes from same mold. And I think that's the interesting part of all this.
Yeah. So I'm guessing with your model, you're backing a lot of first-time founders.
Yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think this is not exact, but my gut feel that we actually have a batch starting next Monday. So pretty soon, I'm super excited about that. My gut feel is that maybe half of the people joining have founded a company before. So they have experience in this. And then maybe the other half are then like first-time founders with a strong vision or some cool idea they wanna do, but they're maybe first time trying it out. So it's a mix and match.
I think that's great that there are, you get these people who don't have that track record, but there's something exceptional. They got the great idea. They're very motivated because, I think about like Mark Andreessen, I think said, obviously a very big venture VC investor. And he said basically for them, to get an investment from them, you have to have worked with them in the past in somehow, or you need a really strong reference from someone like that they know. So essentially, like if you're not getting into that club, if you will, it's like pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, we call it spike. We think everybody should have some spike. But the thing that allows what allows us to kind of take these kind of not the obvious ones, or at least try our luck with the not the obvious ones, is that we work with them for quite a long time before we actually commit to investing.
Yeah.
And this is something that I don't think Mr. Andreessen, for example, does. I mean, they meet a team, they have a look at the pitch deck, they might meet again for the second time, and then they have to make a call. Do I invest or not? We spend 10, 12 weeks with these people, really get to know them well. And then we decide, should we take this bet or not? So that's the core of our kind of approach to all this.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to help them kind of validate whatever they want to build. We want to help them, and we do help them a lot, kind of figure it out. But at the same time, it acts as due diligence for us in our investment process. So it serves like both purposes, of course.
Yeah, I think that approach is so interesting. You can do it, I think, also as a company in recruitment. I know Automatic, the company behind WordPress, I think they do for every role, you will do a paid project. You'll get paid fully, but it's like maybe a 6-week or something, like fairly long project. And you get to work together, and that says so much more than a CV or an interview.
Yeah,
or
and I think any company that should work that way.
Yeah.
Like somehow work together with that future prospect employee.
Yeah.
Do a project, pay well for that project, but make it a project that allows you to analyze and really think about, is this our next future superstar employee or not? Is he or she the best fit for us at this point in time? And it's sometimes easier, sometimes more tough to kind of set up, but I would definitely encourage those who can or those who are in a position where they can do this to kind of work that way.
Yeah.
Like probation periods, one great thing as well, of course, but somehow the way I see the corporate world working is that they are more kind of on paper than somebody that's something that they would actually act kind of upon. That you have the probation period, and almost always, whether the person was good or bad, it just kind of runs out, and then the problem you encounter problems later down the line.
Exactly.
And it's not always even about if a person is good or bad, or quite often not, but it's about the fit. Is this the right person for this specific role that we have, the specific tasks that needs to be done, and then kind of setting up project, testing, working together. Do we share like cultural fit, value fit, working style fit, remote, local, whatever, on site? Test that out if you can. I think it's a good advice for any company, no matter how big you are.
Yeah, totally agree. So you got this new batch starting. What are the specific things that you and the team at Antler are helping with these founders with? Like, what are the big common challenges that they run into, or is there commonality?
Yeah, I mean, in my head, it all starts from figuring out a real problem to solve. That's something that is urgent, like something that is real and urgent and strong, something that somebody would actually pay for you to solve for them, right? And before jumping to any kind of a solution, we need to understand the problem really well and validate the existence of that problem really well. And that's where our process kind of starts. Of course, we need to, first of all, we have a group of people come together who haven't met each other prior. So of course, the first week is a lot about just matchmaking and kind of building that shared feeling of creating something together. But once we're past that point, it's all about kind of discovering the urgent problem and validating that. And it's something that we spend a lot of time on and really push the founders hard on that you might think that you have figured it out, but have you really? Asking, different kinds of questions, get deeper. And finally, once we think we're deep enough in understanding what needs to be done, then have a rough idea of how to solve it, some kind of an MVP, some kind of a really rudimentary way of actually solving the issue, and then some proof of somebody actually accepting that solution and bringing us some feedback on that. And that's the kind of the loop that we keep spinning and focusing on for a number of weeks. And I think that's the core. I think that's the most basic and the best way to start building a company. Understanding the problem. Once you're kind of deep enough, start thinking about the solution a bit and test out what could work with prospective clients. Find somebody who really wants to pay you for the solution and take it from there. And that's the process that we work kind of jointly on with the founders. This is not a school. We don't teach them that, hey, you need to do X, Y, or Z. We ask tough questions. And I guess I used the term tough love in some interview I did that of course we support, but if we're not tough, if we're not critical, if we're not pushing hard, we're not doing our job right. So that's my kind of value prop to founders. Tough love.
Tough love. Yeah, that's good. So at what stage does the kind of business model enter into it? Like how do they, let's say they found this problem, but maybe they also have a solution, but then there's a question of, can you build a viable business? Can it just be profitable, or can it be big enough? When does that enter into the conversation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think like fundamentally, when we actually then think about investing, I mean, fundamentally, we have to believe that it's possible to build a business model in this that will work. Do they kind of, how soon will that have to kind of come together? Not instant, not immediately, of course. It's okay to lose a lot of money in the beginning. But like, of course, there has to be some idea that ultimately this will make sense. Ultimately, the business model that these founders have envisioned will make sense. And they come in, again, in so many shapes and sizes, business models. The best ones, obviously, are the ones that kind of get stronger over time, generate a data advantage or some kind of a network effect, or a brand that becomes so strong, or something that allows it to kind of grow stronger in time. Optimally, we would be looking for those kind of things. But I guess it's not always possible. So the minimum requirement is that we have a problem, we have a solution, we have proof that somebody will pay for the solution, and then that we believe in the capabilities of the team, that hey, they will actually be able to execute this. That they have a cool plan, but can they actually build the product that they have envisioned? Can they actually get this plan together so that they can then ultimately be able to discover a business model that actually is viable in the long run?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If you got those two things, three things: the problem, the solution, and the team that's adaptable and committed and capable, then the bet is very simple that they're going to be able to figure out the business model some way along the route.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they end up having to make quite a few pivots on the way, testing different models out. It would be foolish to commit too strongly to a given business model too early. I mean, sometimes you don't know. Are you going to build a commission? Is it going to be a subscription? I mean, if it's a platform play, which side of the platform do you actually end up charging? It might even evolve over time that you end up first charging somebody, but then you kind of change and charge the other side instead, or both. So it depends. It depends so much. But I guess us, as any VC, as any investor, like all these kind of recurring revenue models are way more attractive than like single sales stuff that you have to kind of redo all the time. So all kinds of subscription, recurring revenue models obviously make a lot of sense. Easier to predict, easier to kind of invest in because of predictability and the numbers are easier to kind of measure and build projections on and so forth.
Yeah. Are you also then helping companies with the go-to-market? Because there are certain best practices about how to price, how to grow, how to sell. And I'm guessing, especially if it's a first-time founder, maybe they got this like domain expertise, technical knowledge in the specific field.
Yeah.
But then there's a bunch of like this back office and other like general business skills that they lack.
Yeah.
Do you guys then also support with that, or?
Yeah, we help them figure it out. But like, am I going to pick up the phone and start doing cold calls for founder? No way. I mean, it's them who have to kind of show that initiative and that hustle and that kind of pick up the phone, right?
Yeah.
Intros, of course. I mean, help figure out the most like probable buying persona or ICP, whatever we call it. Of course, we help in that thought process and help figure it out and push the founders to make the tests that they need to kind of do in order to actually know if what they think, if the hypothesis actually is correct or not, right? So we work a lot jointly on that theme, help them figure it out. But of course, we can't do the work for them. Yeah. I mean, we invest in, I don't know, maybe 15 companies in Finland alone per year or something. In the Nordics, 50, between 50 and 60 probably. It's quite a lot of teams, quite a lot of stuff that has to be figured out. So we ultimately trust the founders to do the work, but we help them ask the right questions, help by making intros when they make sense, help them figure it out. That's our thing.
I had a question that escaped me. There was a quote. It was I forget who. It was some investor when a founder asked him how they would be, what kind of help they would receive from the investor, and the investor said, "Why would I invest in a founder who needs my help?"
There you go.
So you can't be holding it, like they need to. If they can't get it, if they can't figure it out, I mean, good counsel, yes. Yeah. But if they can't figure it out themselves, then
no, that's the thing. And I like, even when it comes to intros and whatnot, I mean, if you're determined and just want to reach somebody, I mean, you should be able to do so. Look at the tooling at the moment. Like a person with no technical background, if determined, can put together an MVP for quite a complex service or app or whatever, quite fast actually, using the current AI coding tooling, for example. So, I mean, we can't teach, we can't do stuff for them, for anybody. We're there to kind of counsel, we're there to spar, there to kind of help think about the right things. But ultimately, of course, people have to do it themselves.
Yeah. What are the biggest problems that you see founders or teams run into? Like, are there anything that stands out, like common, they always make these mistakes, or they don't focus enough on this, pay too much attention to that?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, I mean, something that I touched upon already, but this jumping to solution, thinking that you start building a solution before you've actually validated the existence or the need for that solution. That you start building something that you don't fundamentally know if people actually want that or need that, because you haven't even understood the problem well enough. So that we see all the time, and we all the time have to kind of push founders back to kind of figuring out the problem first, go deeper, and then think about solving it. So that's one thing. Secondly, and I guess here opinions differ, but I don't think like fundraising at the early stage for a company, I don't think it's a numbers game. If you have to take 100 investor meetings, I think you're doing something wrong, in the sense that your product, which in this case is your company as a whole, is the product from an investor's point of view. If you have to take 100 meetings and everybody says no, your time is not well spent taking another 100 meetings, but by figuring out what's wrong with the product, i.e. your company, and kind of fixing that, and then allowing funding solve for itself. So very often founders kind of end up in this loop where they just run around looking for capital and money and kind of trying to raise funding when they should be focused on building a product that somebody actually wants, and then proving that that's the case, and then allowing the funding to kind of come to them. So I don't think building a startup is about like running around looking for investors, but it's about figuring out something that people actually want to buy, and then doing that, and then allowing the funding thing to kind of solve itself because of all the traction that you can generate and kind of the product market fit that you can demonstrate.
Yeah.
So those are pretty fundamental things.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think people should think about more. And then there are all kinds of, minor stuff relating to kind of spending time on admin versus actually being out there with the clients, understanding clients' needs and customer needs and whatnot. But on a fundamental level, I think those are can be huge time drains.
Yeah.
That a CEO of a very young, small company could end up kind of spending time on, just running around looking for funding. And of course, like I would also kind of encourage people to think about like how much work is needed in the initial stages of a company, how much work they need to put in to actually have a shot at making it fly. Like on day one, in a company of 1 or 2 founders, there's nobody else in the world who will do anything for them. If they sleep, the company does not move. If they eat, the company does not move, right? Then when they have first employees, they might sleep and somebody still does something for the company. It still kind of evolves, it goes some places. But the early stages, it's all up to the founders kind of figuring it out and putting the work in. And I think the first year, they should expect to really commit to working hard and not procrastinating, not kind of I'll do this tomorrow or next week, but do move super fast. And it's again something that I think almost every founder could be better at, and up to the point where they kind of collapse because of just doing too much.
Yeah.
But like that's what people should be prepared for when building companies.
Given that, what do you think is like a good background, or is there like a good optimal background for someone to start a company? Because I'm thinking, if you worked at, I think there was this article, maybe I just read the headline about Googlers leaving to start their own startups and realizing that it's really hard, actually.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Because if you worked inside this money printing machine, that is like one of the most successful companies, startups of all time ever, you get really like, you get a completely distorted view of what it is. So do you see that? I'm thinking in your portfolio, like people coming from big companies, maybe they got the technical, they got the business skills, but maybe they don't have the grit and perseverance that it would require.
No, I think it's an excellent question. And I think it's more up to the person. Kind of then we could kind of generalize and say that everybody who comes from big corporate would be determined to kind of end up that way. But I definitely do see that as a risk, and it's for us it's kind of a red flag that we need to mitigate if we kind of think about applicants coming from really large corporates or somebody with a long background working for a large corporate, because of course then we need to be quite certain that this person has the founder kind of mentality, and they just don't. They don't need the kind of the momentum of the big company and all the resources of the big company to kind of push things forward. They actually want to do the work themselves. Because again, as I said, you can't delegate. Yeah. You can't say somebody else do this for me. You have to do it yourself. So it's definitely not a showstopper, but it's something that we have a look at. And I don't know, like I guess post Nokia, many Nokia employees became founders. And I don't know, like I haven't seen the data, but I don't know how many of those cases were successful in the end. And I've always wondered that was it partially because of people kind of coming from that big corporate background and then expecting to be quite fast successful with the next ventures. And I'm sure there are some really great companies born out of that, but probably many cases who also kind of didn't go anywhere because of that problem. But I wouldn't generalize. I think it's up to the person and people in question and that. But it's something that it takes a different kind of a mentality for sure.
Yeah. I'm guessing kind of the flip side of that would be if you've joined a very successful startup early on, then that could have been a really great training ground for you.
Yeah, I mean, those are, again, we talked about the leading indicators when we look for great founders. Definitely kind of those kind of early employees of companies that became category leaders, like the Finnish unicorns. Of course, very interesting profiles because they've, first of all, seen how much work it takes to get a company to that level. And secondly, understand how tough the competition is, how good you have to be to win a certain category. and like what the competition is globally. Finland is one thing, but then when you go to Stockholm, you already realize that, hey, it's actually a bit bigger here. You go to London, it's another step. You go to San Francisco, another, right? So if you kind of seen that close, that journey, of course, it gives you perspective that's super valuable and a great kind of a starting point to then build something of your own. And it's something that we see across the Nordics, that the founders from ex-unicorns or the unicorns that have been created, or the early employees of those companies are kind of the second generation cool tech, fast-growing companies. And we see this in Sweden, we see it in Finland, we see it all over the place, right? Which is, of course, I hope that it's a kind of, it means that we have good prospects to create more great tech companies out of the Nordics, because we've had past success cases in all the 4 Nordic countries, and Estonia definitely included. And kind of those should, at least in my mind, ultimately breed more great tech companies kind of being born out of these locations. And it's going to be great for the economy. It's going to be great for the VC industry, of course, but it's going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of high value adding jobs, a lot of talent in the economies and countries. So I think it's very positive and definitely something that we look at all the time.
So you're working in the Nordic Fund, and I guess you mentioned Estonia, and I'm guessing you have also exposure to the other kind of markets that Antler is active in. Do you see any big differences between startups in Finland or compared to Sweden and Estonia? And I'm thinking, Sweden had, maybe not anymore, but until quite recently, they had the highest unicorn per capita rate outside of Silicon Valley. And if you look at the stock market in Sweden, the most valuable company by a pretty big margin is Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's not the case in Finland. You don't have startups in the top 10, I think, or top 20 or whatever. So
not yet, at least.
Not
hopefully
yet,
we will at some point. Yeah.
But do you notice any big differences? And is there anything that Finland can learn from our neighbors or further?
Well, I guess it's a cliche that Swedish companies or Swedish founders would be better at selling or commercializing branding, but I do believe that there's some truth to that as well. That cliche. We are more kind of engineer driven, more maybe solution driven again,
right,
in Finland than we tend to be in Sweden, or I'll touch upon on Estonia later. And it comes back to my earlier point on kind of starting from the problem, not from the solution. What I see too much here is engineers or researchers who have kind of, they have a solution looking for a problem to actually solve. And maybe I don't see that in Sweden because I'm not boots on the ground there, but I definitely do see too much of that in Finland. And it starts from understanding the customers better, it starts from understanding the market, the problem better, and maybe it then trickles down into being better able to actually sell the product, which the Swedes tend to be, for some reason, better at doing, right? And this is also manifested by the cases that have been born out of that market. I mean, many more consumer-facing unicorns or great companies versus Finland. I guess we have, of course, the Supercell, the games that have been a huge success case. Oura Ring, I guess nowadays, a huge consumer case coming out of Finland. So we've shown that it's possible, for sure. But kind of have to keep up the good work on that front. So I would say that even if it's a cliche, Sweden, we do see more B2C stuff. We do definitely see more like consumer-facing exercises and simply more activity at the moment. Somehow Sweden is already maybe picking up a bit more than Finland now post this small slump that we've seen. And when it comes to Estonia, I mean, again, I guess they now have the highest unicorn per capita number. It's like 4.5 per million inhabitants or something. So it's quite a lot, and it's just the ambition is crazy high. Like when I talk to young people from Estonia, like 20-year-olds, for them it's not another question of do I go to university or do I build a startup. It's like the only thing they want to do is build a startup. Because that's like somehow it's the cool thing, it's the thing that they want to do, and the ambition and the grit and all that seems to really be in that, should really be there. I really respect them for that and cool ambition. I don't think like skill wise we're definitely not a single bit worse in Finland, but we could benefit from that crazy ambition and that desire, like burning desire to do stuff.
Yeah.
I think we have a better social security kind of a net, or we're kind of a bit more comfy, I feel, versus some of the Baltic founders who they don't have that kind of a state backing. They have to do stuff, to build stuff, to kind of improve their kind of standard of living more than we do here. So it feels, at least, and they seem to be like super ambitious, maybe because of that.
Yeah.
Great to see. I love working with Estonian and Baltic founders.
Yeah.
Super cool people.
Yeah. It feels like, I feel like we're definitely comfortable, and there, which is fine. I mean, we can make a choice to focus more on work-life balance, but I think we shouldn't delude ourselves into thinking that grit and energy, and especially, I guess, in the beginning, sheer number of hours actually matters. Like, when you're Zuckerberg running a big company, like, it's not about the hours, it's about judgment, it's about making good decisions. But when you're like getting started and you just need to push through.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean, and of course, I mean, I'm all for work-life balance ultimately as well. And I guess anybody who decides to live in Finland probably is. We are here because we appreciate the kind of the other side of all this as well, right? But especially in the early stages, like the first year, like if somebody decides to become founder, they all want to succeed. So why not just then fully commit to try to succeed? The first year cannot be about work-life balance. I don't think it should be the mindset. It can turn into that later on, but the initial phases, it's simply, at least partially, about the sheer numbers that you can put in. And because the competition is fierce. Somebody else is doing that. They're as smart as you, but they are putting in the work. So it's just like this, I will work so much smarter than somebody else. It doesn't make sense to me because there's somebody else doing stuff super smart, but more. So you need to be there.
And in fact, I always find that action creates insight. Like if someone is just, they're talking to twice as many people, even if they're not as smart as you, they're just going to learn more.
Exactly. And then, definitely. And coming back to diversity, I mean, just having teams that are diverse enough, again, speeds up learning because you have different ways of thinking. And then speaking to different kinds of clients in different locations, also very important that you don't just call Finnish potential users, but you actually reach out to Sweden or UK or the US or Germany, whatever, to get different perspectives. And again, speed up learning. So it's very essential.
Is that something that you look for, or like is maybe a criteria for you? Is you want to build it kind of global first? Like you're not interested in building something that can only be for the Finnish market? Like you need to think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, it's fine for us if the first clients come out of Finland, but there has to be an idea of going global.
Yes.
Super fast. I mean, we're a tiny speck in this kind of. I mean, I did an MBA, was it like 12 years ago in Spain, and we were actually thinking about founding a company with a group of my fellow MBA candidates or graduates back then. One was from the US, one was from Israel, and one guy was from Germany, and I was from Finland. As a team of 4. So then we're kind of finished with the MBA. We're thinking about, so where should we set up the company? So we had a US, a German, one from Tel Aviv, and then myself. So I can tell that Helsinki was not high on that list. That we could go to, we could stay here in Madrid, or we could go to Berlin, or we could go to New York. Why would we go to Helsinki where there's... So I think Helsinki is a great place to build. We have great talent. The price levels are acceptable. I mean, cost levels are acceptable. Many good reasons to build here, but the customers we need to find elsewhere. Pretty fast.
And then it comes back to that maybe the skill set that the Swedes have more than us is you need to be able to explain what you're doing and the commercialization of it. It's not enough to have this kind of Finnish mindset. We're going to build it, make it perfect, and then barely talk about it, not brag. It's kind of like,
No, but I mean, building a company is about storytelling and doing it boldly. I mean, you have to put together a story that convinces, well, first of all, your co-founders, like the people you build with. Then you need to convince the resources, like somebody who joins you as an employee, that, hey, I want to be part of this story. You need to convince the investors, hey, this makes sense from that point of view. And ultimately, you have to tell a story that convinces the customers as well. And being kind of bold and kind of coming across, not brash, but in a way, convincing and bold
Yeah.
and optimistic and positive.
Yes.
It's of course super important. And us Finns, I don't think it's not the core of our kind of self. It's not the core of our kind of behavior, our kind of. I think the Swedes are more optimistic in that sense. Again, maybe it's something that then ultimately translates into them being sometimes better at doing this. But I guess we all can do this if we just decide that, hey, this is a problem we need to solve, we need to do it, we need to put together a compelling story that, excites all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not any worse than anybody else.
No.
Of course not. But we have to just decide to do it and understand that we need to do it, put ourselves out there.
Yes.
Like we founders, I mean, if you just sit back and wait for others to again discover you, it's not the way to go about it, right? You have to somehow be active, get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about AI. I feel like probably the earliest and most kind of aggressive users, adapters of AI would be early stage startups, because they're seeing all these tools. They've got this big incumbents, and they're like, we need to build this prototype very quickly. So that obviously they're going to use AI in a way that big companies are not going to be doing. So what are you seeing from the companies that you work with? How are they using AI, and how is that changing maybe not at your stage, but I'm thinking, VC in general, because I've come across a few of these companies in recent time. One of them I'm thinking of went from like 0 to 20 million ARR in 2 months, I think.
Yeah.
Built this AI tool, and these companies are doing like crazy high ARR with very small teams, very quickly.
Yeah.
So how are you seeing AI in your kind of space?
No, it's a very interesting topic. We actually have invested in one Swedish company that went, I think they're now at 17 million ARR, 3 month old. So 3 months since launch. Of course, the company is a bit.
Yeah. 17 million euros in ARR.
Yes, ARR. So it's like,
that's insane.
It's pretty insane.
I mean, have we, just to put it into context, we've not seen anything like that before, right?
No, I don't think so. I think they claim to be the fastest growing company out of Europe ever. That's their own claim. Maybe it's true, I don't know, maybe not, but it's pretty extraordinary. And I guess it just shows to say that well, first of all, this AI is pretty revolutionary in many ways. That it allows like new ways of solving old problems. And that's of course a very interesting kind of a point in time always. That you might have a tech company born 10 years ago who built a solution without the AI layer. And now you can actually disrupt that market now with the next generation version of that kind of driven by AI. So you can kind of solve old problems using AI in a new way, which is super interesting and can potentially allow for really, really fast growth. And then of course, like secondarily, the amount of resources and sheer kind of coding power needed to get stuff out there has been cut to a fraction of what it used to be only a couple of years ago. And that's of course for a startup, it allows them to challenge the incumbents way faster and with way less resources than they could have done a couple of years ago. And that's a pretty fundamental shift. And I think that makes this current point in time one of the probably the best point in time ever to become founder and start a company, because you have this sudden availability of tooling and resources that were not there before, that allow you to challenge all kinds of models, all kinds of companies, all kinds of ways of working in ways that haven't been done before. And of course the startups, because they have nothing to lose, they will of course make the most of it. I mean, try everything out, and it's transformative. It's going to be transformative in many industries. And of course, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. And I think I guess we mentioned Mark Andres, and I don't want to talk about him too much, but I heard him on some podcast saying that when he was a tech entrepreneur in the 90s, putting together Mosaic and Netscape, the browsers, that he thought that everything had already been done. All the opportunities are gone. I'm too late to the game. It's mid-90s, right? And it's so easy to always think that, hey, we're now too late to the game. I shouldn't, all the cool stuff that has been done already. And I don't think we could be more wrong. in a way that this is the best time to ever to build something, because of you don't need that many resources. You have all the tooling available. Anybody who can't even code can create products, digital products. You can move crazy fast. I think it's a super interesting point in time, and the startups will definitely like make most out of it for sure. So very interesting to see what comes out of it.
That's an interesting perspective, and I feel like there used to be this meme that you have this person with a great idea, and they're looking for a technical co-founder who can actually build it.
Yeah.
But that's not even. I mean, technical and coding is still needed.
Yeah.
But like you can say, you can build, like you said, you can build an MVP.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, but you can build incredible things with zero, just prompt engineering.
Yeah.
It's
for sure. I mean, if somebody is really determined and tells me that, hey, I've been working on this for 6 months and I can't find a CTO, therefore I have not gotten anywhere, it's a huge red flag, because if this person is really determined, I mean, he or she could have done that MVP just by using all this modern tooling now. Ultimately, of course, you need architecture. You need all kinds of kind of more like deeper technical know-how. I mean, we're not going to replace CTOs, of course not.
Yeah.
But even though CTOs can get so much more done versus before with the modern tooling, and be able to move so much faster, like iterate, pivot so much faster, try things out so much faster than ever before. So yes. And then this type of, I think it's a debate that people have been having, that when do we have the first company, like a unicorn, that is like a single person run business, right? I don't think we've seen it yet. But like, will it happen? How fast will it happen? I think it's bound to happen. That somebody just, builds alone out of garage, something that goes so big that
that's so crazy. I read that as well. And the first time I heard it, I was like, yeah, it's probably going to happen, but it felt like very remote. But now when you start seeing these things, it's like, it's actually not that far away.
Yeah.
I think it's so crazy when I just think of, take the companies in Finland that have a market cap of over $1 billion. There's not that many. And some of them are huge. I mean, think about the operations that they have. And then there's this one person.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's something is incredibly is happening, the value capture of the new economy. It's like insane.
And that's tech for you. I mean, there's so much. I mean, tech has driven all value creation, almost all value creation now in the last 10, 15 years. And it's just gonna go faster and faster. And then, I mean, let's not make this too much into politics, but somehow we need to figure out also here in Finland, like how do we become more tech? We've always perceived ourselves as tech, but like how tech are we truly these days? And how do we kind of get more on board that train that moves so fast? Somehow we need to kind of stay up to speed, because that's where the value is going to be created. It's not going to be created by the kind of manufacturing old-fashioned stuff or building like low value add big server farms or even hydrogen plants here. I mean, that's low value add stuff. They might be like big investments numbers wise at construction phase, many jobs, but like ultimately it's low value add. So we need to somehow become way more tech again, because we have been there, but somehow we're being a bit left behind now.
Maybe got a bit too comfortable.
Maybe, but it happens. I mean, it's always going in cycles.
For sure.
I mean, it's natural. It goes in cycles, and there's no reason why we will not get back there. We will definitely get back there.
Yeah.
But I think it's fundamentally important for Finland as a country to figure it out one way or another.
What's your thought then, if AI is this great enabler, accelerant opportunity? How do you coach startups, founders to be thinking about that? Is it about, do they need to learn something technical, or do they just need to stay at the forefront of what's happening, or do they just need to be experimenting, tinkering?
A few things. First of all, I think they need to be tinkering and experimenting quite a bit to kind of figure out how to use it best. But then, of course, with any AI business, also there you have to ultimately figure out the business model, and especially kind of what makes this sustainable versus competition, and not in the long run, but actually in the medium run, like in 1-2 years, so that it's somebody else that doesn't just come and kind of run over you, right? So how do you build a data set gets better all the time? How do you create something proprietary that allows you to kind of not only move fast now and lose all the business to somebody else in a year's time, because that can also happen, that you get this, there's so many people are now willing to try stuff out that you might be able to grow really fast for a short span of time now with some novel AI approach, just to see competition catch up in 6 months and then kind of losing the ability to really make any money with that. So kind of what's the logic behind your AI approach that is sustainable? Is it like a data set that you build? Is it something else that you build that makes you better gradually over time? So those are also important things to figure out. And this is still so early that many founders not all of them yet understand well enough the logic behind these LLMs and how this actually works. Like, you need to understand the fundamental logic behind in order to come up with the kind of the business model that makes sense or the solution that makes sense. So it's about trying things out, it's about tinkering, but it's also about like understanding on a fundamental level how these things behave, how they will look like in a year's time, so that you can kind of position yourself in a correct way to what's gonna kind of the next phase of development, because it's moving fast and you need to understand where will this be in a year's time. Because easily what can happen now is that you end up building something that grows really fast in the beginning, but then there's no real sustainability behind that approach, and kind of be mindful of that. But it is fascinating. I mean, on many levels, it's fascinating.
It's kind of scary how quickly things become commoditized. I'm thinking about the LLMs. Now they're open source.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the best models, but very, very good models that just a few years ago, companies would have paid, I don't know how much for. Like there was like this Pandora's box kind of thing, and now it's just out there for anyone.
Exactly. And we can of course make fun of DeepSeek and how that kind of won't tell us about Tiananmen Square, whatever. Right. And we should, but I mean, again, they showed us that with limited resources, you could do this so much more efficiently, put together stuff so much more efficiently, and it will evolve from this a lot further, and it will become like LLMs will become commoditized for sure. And again, what is that the implication of that to your business if you're a founder? Like, what does it mean? It's going to mean that there's going to be a lot more people and players in the space. The price levels are going to go down, whatever you're building. So again, how do you position yourself in a way that gives you an edge when that commoditization has happened, when everything has kind of graduated or have gone down in price and there's more competition and so forth. So huge opportunities, but of course everybody is playing the game now. Everybody is there trying to do it. So you have to, again, find your own angle, your own edge, your own thing, own approach, so to say, even with the AI solutions.
Final question for you as we wrap up here. You've had, before Antler, you had pretty broad kind of range of experience from launching your own companies and exiting them and working in established companies. We didn't get to touch upon that, but now, kind of from your time at Antler, what have been kind of for you the biggest kind of takeaways or like eye-opening? Is it about AI? Is it about some other opportunity? Is there something something that stands out that you've just been like, wow, I did not know this, because you're in a seat that is still quite privileged, I say, in terms of getting the exposure to lots of different teams in a way that very few people in the Nordics are.
No, it's an excellent question, and what delights me at least is the fact that I get to work with a very diverse group of founders. I think we had like 15 nationalities in the previous batch.
50?
And 15. We had 45-ish people or something. It's quite a lot actually.
Yes,
And we're going to do the same now. And you never know who, like day one ex ante, you never know who is the greatest, the best founder in this bunch. And it surprises me all the time. It's awesome. And that's something that I kind of delights me on a daily basis, that I get to work with such a diverse group of people. In Finland, it's not given. I mean, we are a small nation that is relatively homogeneous, so I think it's super cool to be able to do that. That delights me. When I joined Antler, and this was only like a year and a half ago, I didn't expect this world to move this fast when it comes to AI. So again, even though I should I should have known in a way a year and a half ago, but I didn't expect it to move this fast with the way it has. So again, a surprise, and I'm pretty sure there will be quite a few surprises. Even if we try to stay on top of all this, it always manages to catch us by surprise.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about what we do, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of kind of frustration. It's a lot of difficult issues and discussions, but it's at the same time like super exciting to get to see people build cool stuff and then be proud of what they're doing on a daily basis. That's, I think, is pretty special.
I must imagine that because most people work inside bigger companies, and the big difference I find, one of them between startup founder, someone working in big companies, is the level of ownership.
Yeah.
Like you're surrounded by people who deeply care. They're excited. They're optimistic, and I feel like that is that's a privilege, kind of like, because most people are surrounded by colleagues who do not really care, and no one is expecting them. Like it's a job.
Yeah.
But getting that kind of optimism and that like a sense of urgency.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong in that kind of.
Exactly.
It's just a job. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love the word ownership. I think that's what it's all about. Like ownership, responsibility that comes with it. I think it's kind of puts it all together nicely, and that's what it's all about. And that's the kind of people we want to work with, and those kind of teams we want to work with. I guess anybody would want to that actually take ownership in whatever they're doing. Yeah.
Jussi, thank you so much for coming on. It was a really good conversation. I could have gone on for much longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we can do a follow-up at some point. And with all the AI stuff that's happened, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. But thank you so much. Good luck with the new fund. Good luck with the new batch and all the work that you and the team are doing, helping Finnish and Nordic startups. That's I think it's really, really good, really important work.
Thanks, Josu. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You can find all episodes of The Growth Pod on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.